believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Defenders Live. I'm your host, Lora Thorson. Happy Valentine's Day to all you beautiful people out there. Thank you so much for watching tonight. We decided tonight would be the perfect night to title the show, How Big Is Your Love? Which is a phrase I'm not sure is coined by Adam Winch, but I've definitely heard Adam Winch, the founder of Defenders USA, use this phrase quite often in his classes. If you've ever taken a class from Adam, you may have heard this before. And here in just a little bit, he is going to explain what this means in terms of being a defender of ourselves and those that we love. But first, I am going to lead into this with an interesting tidbit of the week and a couple of videos that really hit home for me this week and inspired me. And I'm hoping they will inspire you too. So stay tuned for that in just a little bit. But first, I just want to say, if you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please drop in the comments where you're watching from. We always want to hear from you. A few announcements before we begin. Defenders Live is now officially on almost every podcasting platform, including Spotify and iTunes. So go there and check it out for the audio-only versions. And be sure to leave a review if you like what you hear. And if you don't want to miss out on another episode, be sure to go to defenders-live.com and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and you can sign up for email notifications. I send those out every week so that you can stay up to date on what to expect in upcoming weeks. And you can also join our private Facebook group. And last but not least, stay tuned until the very end of the broadcast because I have an important video that I want to show you regarding next week's show, as well as a few more announcements. So don't be shy. If you have comments throughout the broadcast, put those in the comments. Feel free to chime in. And hey, is anybody out there planning on going to the A Girl and a Gun National Conference? I've got my new shirt on. I got it in the mail today. It's time to shine. That's the theme for this year's A Girl and a Gun National Conference. And Defenders USA will be teaching there this year in April, as well as a huge lineup of other top instructors from across the nation. So be sure to check them out, agirlandagun.org, if you're interested in learning more about that great organization. Is anybody out there watching tonight? Hey, Mike, I see you're watching. Thank you for tuning in. Kathy from Arizona is here. Thank you. And Haven Defense Company from Colorado. Heather is in the house as well. Hey, Heather. Thank you guys for tuning in and keep dropping in the comments where you guys are watching from. So now I have a tidbit of the week. Oh, it's been a rough day. It's been a good day, but it's been a rough day. And it's really hard for me to be vulnerable on a camera. It's one of my least favorite things to do for many reasons, and I'm sure you can understand why. But I do want to share this with you because I want to lead by example, for one, and I want to remind you that when I say that I want to be honest with you and share whatever it is in my life that I think can help you, it's the truth. And so I titled this tidbit of the week, Do It Anyway. I really struggled today to do a show about love, of all things, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. And I don't know why I struggled so much with it. It doesn't really make sense why that would be. But today I felt the forces of doubt and fear creep into my mind. And they were so strong and they were so palpable. I struggled with my faith today. I heard the voices trying to take over my mind. The voices that tell me that nobody cares. The voices that mock me for trying. The ones that tell me that this doesn't matter. But it does matter. I wrestled with those thoughts and I prayed to God for strength. And I asked God, why can't I be brave? Why can't I be bold in my convictions? And the Lord touched my heart and he said, but my dear soul, you are brave. And he showed me that even when faced with doubt and uncertainty, I will do it anyway, over and over again. Even when I feel too weak, even when I feel too tired. And he's right. Here I am, showing up for you again. In fact, tonight is the 79th time I have shown up for this show since 2022 because it matters, because I care, and all because of love. So I will continue. And my message to you right now, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever is coming against your heart and making you doubt yourself, telling you that you can't, in whatever it is that you're called to do not listen to those voices. They are lying to you. Do not wait. This is so important. Do not wait until you feel strong to take the next step. Do it anyway, even in weakness. And I know it's so hard, but that is what we're called to do. I was led to this today, and this jumped off the page at me and reminded me that our weakness is his strength. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Verses 7 through 11, Paul says, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, for this reason, to keep me from exalting myself, there was given me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from exalting myself. Concerning this, I implored the Lord 3 times that it might leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. The message I take from this is a reminder to surrender the illusion of strength and control and humble ourselves so that the Lord may work his strength and will through us, because he works perfectly through our weakness, in our hardships, and through our difficulties, even if we have no idea why or how. Find peace in knowing that. So that was rough. I'm sorry. But I hope that this helps someone out there tonight. It certainly helped me today. And now I shall move on to the next phase of the show. Oh, Lord. Okay, so this show's all about love if you haven't figured that out. And so the first video that I want to show you, there's a series of two. This first is a 5-minute video talking about the history of St. Valentine. A friend of mine called me a couple days ago and asked if I knew this story. I did not. So once I learned it, I thought it was interesting enough to share with all of you in case you don't know the story. I think it's valuable and I think we can learn from it. And then after this, I'm going to present one more video, a short one, relatively short, and then I'll give the floor to Adam. So stand by. And if you can't hear this, please tell me in the comments.
For many people, Valentine's Day is all about romance.
If you ask the person in the street, what does Valentine's Day mean to you? All it means is heart-shaped boxes of chocolates and a nice dinner with your with your beloved and sending cards and so forth. And then if they did know about a St. Valentine, they probably wouldn't realize that he was a priest in the late 3rd century in Rome who was actually martyred for the faith. Very often legends will develop from real facts. There's that little phrase in J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings where he says, history became legend and legend became myth.
The legend of St. Valentine is a story that is rooted in fact.
There are 3 stories surrounding him, and they all agree on a number of issues. It seemed that he was born in 226 in a tiny little city called Terni in Umbria in Italy, and that he was either a priest or a bishop. Valentine apparently lived during the reign of the Emperor Claudius II. He's sometimes referred to as Claudius Gothicus. Now, this emperor did not reign for very long, maybe a year and a half. Rome at this point in time was really a cesspool of immoral behavior. Pedophilia was rife, sexual promiscuity was rife, and one of the great witnesses of the early church is that they stood up for the value of a godly marriage, where sexuality was channeled into its God-given boundaries, and it would become a witness of what enduring love could look like.
During his reign, Claudius issued an edict that made marriage illegal.
There was an invasion of Goths towards Rome, and they needed a lot of people to go to war. And it seemed that the rule was that once you were married, you were given freedom not to go to war. And Valentine would not only convert the people, but secretly marry them so that they could indeed stay at home.
Valentine was arrested and brought to Rome. While he was being held captive, he presented the gospel to his jailer, the judge Asterius.
So the judge said to him, well, if this indeed is true, I want you to prove it. And he brought one of his adopted daughters, who happened to be blind, the one legend says. And what happened is that Valentinus, or Valentine here, laid his hands upon this girl, and she was healed immediately.
Another legend says that before he was executed, he left a note for the girl signed, "Your Valentine." Some say this led to the practice of sending valentines on February 14th, the day he was beheaded.
All the legends seem to agree that Valentine was martyred on the 14th of February in 269.
Therefore, that was the day associated with him when the church would celebrate and thank God for his life.
So Valentine's Day didn't start out as a romantic holiday.
We do need to recognize that this day, the 14th of February, was already connected with Valentine from the 4th century, already from that time onward. And right from the beginning, this celebration had more to do than just a celebration of romantic love. And the church's commitment to Valentine to honor this example of Christian marriage and sacrifice and martyrdom and the healing of other people and the spread of the gospel was from the beginning a commitment to what Christian marriage could be like in our world and the message that it brings to a broken world.
Valentine's Day represents more than flowers and candy. It's about what's in our hearts and the heart of Christ.
When we see those hearts on Valentine's Day, we can remember that that heart also has some connections back to the heart of Jesus and to God's love for us, and we can remember that the source of all love and the source of self-sacrifice and love for each other is rooted in God's love, and in the witness that St. Valentine actually made for that love.
For Christians, marriage is more than just a union between a man and a woman. For Christians, marriage is a holy parable of the love of Christ towards his church. It's a visible sermon about what holiness and purity could look like in our lives. We should celebrate what true sacrificial love looks like in a broken world. And ultimately, it should be a day that we celebrate the commitment of Christ who gave his life for his church. It should be a day of evangelism. It should be a day where we celebrate the power of true love to change our world. It is a Christian holiday.
All right, so there's the first video. I have one more here, and the next video is just a little bit longer. It's 8 minutes long, and this one you might have seen before, but it is worth watching again, even if you've seen it. It's an amazing story, and even as I was putting the show together today, it served as a perfect reminder, and you'll understand what I mean when you watch it. So I wanted to share this with you because it was helpful for me, and it's worth every second. And then after this video, I'm going to turn the floor over to Adam. Bear with me while I cue this one up here. Just a second.
I was in Alaska doing a lawsuit. We're way out in the Aleutian Islands, getting ready to leave and go back to Anchorage and then home. And I had a ticket in my pocket to get on an airplane. The pastor came up and he said, "Listen, I can save you money." I said, "How's that?" He said, "I flew a small airplane up here. And I fly a small airplane. And I can take you in my little airplane and you can save your ticket." And this did not sound, I said, "Gee, thank you so very, very much. But I've got this ticket. We'll just make our way on home, me and this other lawyer with me." He said, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. And against every better judgment I had, I said, okay. Well, we went out to the airport, took us by his little plane, and I looked at it. And I thought, well, one good thing, it's shiny. Then he walked around it. We got in. He's on the left front. I'm on the right front. The other lawyer's sitting right behind me. And he started it up. And it started up just fine. Well, we taxied out. I said, "Should we pray?" He said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. We normally don't." I said, "Well, this time we're going to." And I'm telling you, I prayed 8 minutes. I prayed a long time. We went and got on the runway. He starts down the runway. The plane lifted off ever so gently, and we start climbing. And it's wonderful. Not a problem in the world. We started climbing, and we flew probably 3-4 minutes. And something happened that will never leave my mind. The pilot turned to me and he said, "We're going in the clouds and I can't fly in clouds. They make me pass out." I said, "Clouds make you do what?" Now, it's been cloudy all day. And we go right up into the clouds and you can't see anything. And he looks at me and his eyes roll back in his head. And he starts mumbling and he passes out. Passed out cold. Now I grabbed him and I shook him and I said, "Come on, you got to wake up so I can kill you." Now we're in the clouds flying along with no pilot. And my friend in the back seat said, "We're dead, aren't we?" I said, "There's a very good chance of that, yes." He said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "I don't know." But there was a radio right there and I handed him the microphone and I said, "Start asking for help." So he's in the back seat reaching up and he said, "Hello, hello." We didn't know any proper radio etiquette. All we were saying was hello. And somebody answered back, "Hello, hello. Don't you guys know proper radio etiquette?" And I said, "Give it to me." I said, "Tell them we don't know nothing. Tell them we're in an airplane with a passed out pilot and we don't know how to fly this plane." The guy said, "I'm a freighter flying out of Anchorage on the way to Tokyo." And he said, "You're telling me you have nobody who can fly that plane with you?" I said, "Tell them that's correct." Now you got to understand, I am sweating bullets. He said, "The first thing I'm going to do is start circling so I don't lose you, because I'll fly out of range of your radio and you won't have me anymore." And he said, "I'm going to get Anchorage emergency for you." And Anchorage Emergency will be the people that can maybe help you. Try to save your life. After about 5 minutes, Anchorage came on, said, we understand you have a passed out pilot, and those of you do not know how to fly that plane. We said, that's right. They said, well, the first thing we got to do is find you. And I'll never forget what this man at Anchorage said. He said, my job is to get you home safe. He said, that's my job. But he said, here's the deal. If you want me to get you home safe, you got to promise me you'll obey my voice. He said, you can't see me, but I can see you. And he said, if you're not going to obey my voice, you're going to die. When you can't see anything, you have no idea how disorientated you become. Finally, he said, okay, I found you. Now hear me clear. He said, you're 4 minutes from a mountain. He said, you're going to crash in that mountain and die. Follow my voice. I never said, I have to follow your voice. Is that reasonable? You see, I understood without his voice, I had nothing. And do you understand? Without God's voice, you have nothing. Nothing. Finally, he got us turned. And he said, I'm freezing all the traffic in the area. He said, it's going to take me an hour and a half to get you to Anchorage, and there's a lot of weather between you and Anchorage. You're in for a rough ride. And he said, I want you to hear me. I don't want you to look at what's going on outside. I don't want you to pay attention to the storm, just my voice. He said, if you start watching the storm, you will die. But I'll take you through it. Now, because they cleared all the traffic, several pilots, those nighttime freighters, those 747s started talking to us. They said, we're praying for you, men. You're going to make it. But listen to the voice. That's the key. They said, trust the voice. You realize your head is full of voices, and everybody in this world wants to talk to you, and everybody wants to be the controlling voice. And God says, I want you to be a living sacrifice. I want you to put yourself on the altar and let my voice be your voice. Finally, we went through the worst of the weather, but there was still more. And then the voice came back and it said, now, I'm going to line you up. He said, I'm going to bring you in right down the runway. And at the foot of the runway are some lights, and they're in the form of a cross. He said, don't you forget this. The cross is the way home. Finally, he's bringing us down. We still can't see anything. And all he kept saying is, stay with me. My sheep, the Bible says, hear my voice and they follow me. Finally, just a couple 100 feet off the ground, we saw the cross. I landed the plane. In fact, I landed it 7 times. Finally, it all came to a stop, and the minute we stopped, the pilot woke up. The voice said, thanks for listening. I watch them crash and burn all the time because they won't follow my voice. They don't understand I'm the one who can see them even when they can't see me. But they get the voices in their head and they kill themselves. They self-destruct. Thanks for listening to the voice. Then they put us in a motel room, and about 4 a.m, the knock at my door. I opened the door and a man was standing there. He said, hello, David. I said, you're the voice. You're the one who got me home. He said, I am. Do you understand one day you're going to stand before him and say, you were the voice. You're the voice that brought me home. If you're not on that altar as a living sacrifice, your head's full of voices. And then we wonder why kids crash and burn. We wonder why marriages are shattered. And the Lord's saying, I'm the one who has the voice. All I can remember is that voice saying, stay with me. Stay with me. Don't listen to what's going on in your head and don't watch the storm. Stay with me. And I'll take you through. Tonight you have a God who has promised to take you through. A living sacrifice, holy.
All right, so there's the second video. I'm going to turn it over to Adam now, and he's going to talk about the concept of how big is your love. After we listen to Adam, I will have what to expect for next week. And you won't want to miss. I've got a short trailer video for you that I really want to share with you. I'm very excited about next week's guest, and so we'll have a couple announcements at the end as well. But Adam, I'm going to take a break and hand it over to you, my friend.
Well, good evening. Good evening. Thanks for having me here, and hope we make this kind of a conversation. So,
Do you
anyways,
want me on the screen or off the
oh
screen?
no, you stay on. You go do whatever you
no.
need to do. But
Well, put
yeah,
me on the screen if you need me.
okay. Well, glad to be here. So, Laura asked me to talk about the concept of how big's your love, right? This is something that I did in a class. In fact, I think it was the first one she came to that I did while I was in Montana. And I could tell it struck a chord with her because, well, it struck a chord with me. And tonight, it's Valentine's Day. Now, some of this may seem a little bit controversial as we get towards the end or towards the conclusion of this, just for the mere fact that there are going to be people that might look at this a little bit differently or would do things differently than maybe I would do or what I'd recommend. When I get into kind of the tactics of what we're going to do or what I'm going to talk about tonight, understand that may not work for you, and you may have to revamp or reconsider your plan of what you would do if the day comes. But really, to set the stage of how big is your love, or really, if you want to put it this way, to whom does your love apply? Let's go back to a beginning so I can set the stage. Really, I think that there's probably 5 or 6 major things in life that we need to become truly good at as a generalist, right? If it's not your profession to do these things, then I think kind of we all have a responsibility to be generally good at these things or to have considered, thought of, studied, and then put effort into. What are those things? Really, if you believe in such a thing, and I do, I think you need to know your God. You need to go know your God well, right? You need to spend time in getting to know your God. My God is Jehovah, right? It's the God of the Bible, and to me, it's something that I've had the blessing of growing up in a religious home, a Christian home, to where, I mean, pastor, missionary kid, I got to hear about this and think about this all the time, and later even ran off to a Bible college, a couple of them, thinking that I was called to preach, until God made very clear to me I was not called to preach. I'm the last person in the world to be called to preach. But in that process, I began to get to know my God. And I think that's something that we all failingly do, at least I do. But I think that if you believe in such a thing, that needs to be part of our thought process. That needs to be a part of our study process, needs to be a part of our life. And then how to live our life according to the precepts of, in my case, the Bible, right? What you believe there. And then following God's word. And that's a deep subject. I mean, think about theology and all that goes into that. And that takes a lot of effort, mentality, a lot of, I'd tell you, emotional struggle to learn that and to understand that as best you can. And for me, it's always revamping as I change or as I get guided. So I think that's one of the areas that we need to know well. You need to know your God. That takes effort. The other area I think that we need to spend our time and effort in is in our family, right? In loving our kids, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters as deeply as possible. And I think that includes not only spending the quality time with them and all, but getting to know what irks them, what makes them happy, how to help them, how to serve them, because that's really what it comes down to, right? How to serve them, how to be a part of their lives. And I mean, it's Valentine's Day, right? Yeah, though it's a commercialized time to really just get us to say I love you on this one day. Should that not be Valentine's Day every day of the year, right? My wife and I, we rarely celebrate or even really consider Valentine's, right? Because to both of us, individually and collectively, it's really just that's how we kind of live our lives anyways. So to me, to have one set aside commercialized day, big deal, right? But you need to know your family well, right? And I think that takes time of not only prayerfully considering what your spouse needs and your kids need, but also melding and molding ourselves to be the right person for them too, in the best way we possibly can. One, to serve them, to guide them, to grow them, to motivate, to inspire them. And I think that's part of the process of the things that we need to be generally good at. Isn't that part of a free society, doing the best we can for others while we also take care of ourselves within it? I think another area we need to become expert in with as much as we possibly can is in the area of our finances, our own personal finances. And I'm not talking just current right now, but also our long-term finances. How are we going to take care of ourselves in the long term? How are we going to take care of our kids? What are we going to leave to our kids? How are we going to take care of our spouse if we were to go away suddenly, right? We get hit by a bus, and how do we take care of them? How do we plan for the future, right? And so the family portion, right? That's a massive topic all by itself, of just knowing that on a general level and being always willing to study and to grow ourselves to be better for our families. Another area I think that we need to become expert in is in the area of our occupation or our calling, right? Should we not constantly strive to become better at what we do all the time, to become the top of the heap, right? In expertise, in knowledge, in understanding of it, of the micro concepts of what we're doing, plus the macro concepts of what we're doing, to see the overall picture, but also be able to do the small stuff. I'm a firearms trainer. Spent a long time as a cop and a soldier, but now I'm a firearms trainer, a defensive trainer, and I'm doing my best based on my time and finance and all to immerse myself as deeply as I possibly can to understand the defensiveness of life, and then what's needed on all sorts of aspects, right? From the military side, the police side, the civilian side, and a lot more. And I think that encompasses everybody, right? Doesn't matter whether you're an accountant, right? You should be constantly going to more training for accounting, or you work in a nail salon, hair salon. Should be constantly going to update, to grow, and to train. I see in the firearms world, too many of us get stuck in what we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and the growth does not happen. So in the area of your occupation or our occupation, I think it's my calling, and I'd suggest it for everybody, that it's ours to constantly grow. So another area for us to generally be good at. Another area I'd tell you that we all have a great responsibility in, especially in a free society, if we want to stay a free society and a safer society, is also in the area of our own defense. I spent a long time as a cop, 10 plus years as a cop. I love a cop, right? I get to live with one. And I can tell you right now that cops are wanting to protect you as best they possibly can, but are rarely there to be able to do so. You have to be the one to defend yourself, right? As a police officer, I was only present 2 or 3 times, maybe 5 times ever in my entire career where the crime was actually happening right there, right? Okay, despite the little stupid bar fight where somebody just starts throwing fists or something like that, but we're talking a real crime. The vast majority of criminals don't show up when a cop is there, right? They kind of tame down what they're doing. Therefore, you are your only defender. And I think one of our general responsibilities as humans is to be adept at, considerate of, and generally trained for our own self-defense, no matter what the tools you have, right? I grew up in West Africa and have moved all over the Middle East, and because of my parents and stuff, got to go spend time in some of the Russian former Soviet bloc countries, right, where firearms aren't allowed. So whatever tools and implements you can use for your own defense in whatever place you're at, I think you should spend some time considering and training for your own defense. And that encompasses a lot of things, right? That encompasses the medical side, right? We are, as a society, more likely to encounter a medical situation than we are something else. So we should be well trained at the medical situation of how to deal with that, stop the bleed, whatever courses you need to go to, right? Learn that type of things. Learn how to use a tourniquet, how to use how to use a tourniquet, how to put on a chest seal, how to plug a wound, how to, and then also how to alert 911 and how to talk to them in efficient manners, and how to. There's so much on the medical side we need to do from the defensive mindset. But on top of that, if you're an American, live in America, or a country that allows firearms, I mean, the kung fu of America is the gun, right? And what better defensive tool than the gun? So I think learning that and learning it very, very well is an obligation for us as people with a defensive mindset, right? The company back there, Defenders USA, it's really about trying to build the defensive mindset and really the heart set. And so therefore, I think that we need to spend the time, effort, and resources to engage in quality and constructive defensive training with your firearm. Now, for the vast majority of Americans, right, that is the handgun. It's not very often we walk around with rifles anymore, right? When I was overseas or in certain type of police situations, you carried a rifle often, but we're not going to be carrying rifles. So therefore, the concealed handgun is the martial art of America. Therefore, if you're a gun ascriber, you should be spending your time, effort, and resources out of the love of your family and for being able to provide for your family and being there for your family and for those who love you in how to use that thing quickly and well and why you should do so. I think on top of that too is it's also balancing out the mentality of the defensive mindset, but also the heart side of this, right? Understanding what it's like on a mental level or talking to people who've been through these type of things to build a strong defensive heart set so that you survive in that moment that comes, but also survive the massive aftermath that does come after you've used a gun or some type of tool defensively. I think part of all this is not just the gun training. It's also learning how to maybe fight, stun, distract, break away, whatever it may be, right? I mean, the vast majority of our population within the gun world, right? We have both men and women. We have a lot of women within the gun world. In fact, I tell you, it's probably about 60% or so of the gun owners that are out there. Right, a lady oftentimes may not be able to get to the gun first, so therefore she's got to learn how to stun, distract, break away, how to see things ahead of time before they come. And in often cases, a lady has to have better defensive skills or better situation awareness than guys do, simply because ladies are more easily can be the victim of crime. Yet they're also the more intuitive to it, and they tend to be switched on a little bit more than us guys. So think of from the defensive aspect, right? There's a lot that we need to put into there to have a well-rounded defense of what we do for ourselves and those we love. So back to the idea of this, I think generally there's a couple things we got to be good at and we got to constantly grow. One, your faith in your God or your knowledge of your God. Two, your family and how your family interacts and how you interact with your family. Three, your finances, right? That's so important. Four, the expertise of your occupation. And five, I'd tell you, your defensive mindset that's out there. And though I am primarily a firearms trainer, that is not the mission, I'd tell you, of most firearms trainers. Or at least I don't think it should be. Right? Yeah, we use the gun to train people, but I think it's far more about this than it is the gun itself. So kind of setting the stage of how big your love is, I think we all need to be a generalist in these things. If that's not your profession, you need to become good at those things. I think that we have a responsibility in a free society to do that because the cop can't be there to help you. You've got to be the only one to do it. When it comes to your finances, you're the only one that's going to do it. Find the expertise to help you. When it comes to your God, you've got to be the one to pursue him. Find the experts to help you pursue your God. Same thing with everything else. That's where we need to go with it. So, Laura, so far, does that make sense to you? Thoughts, questions, concerns so far?
Ooh, I get to ask you questions.
Please, I don't want this to be a preaching thing.
Well, that all encompasses everything that I've heard you say, but the how big is your love? You talk about basically the idea of self-sacrifice. And I remember part of that talk that really spoke to me was kind of this idea that this isn't really about you. This is about everybody else, and everyone else is more important than you. And that was what I was hoping to hear.
So that's where we're going with this, right?
Oh, it's not done yet? Okay.
Yeah, I think we've got to have that general concept. But really,
Okay.
when it comes down to it, right? If you don't have that type of mindset, heart set, and physical training to
Right.
be able to defend yourself well, I saw it over and over in the cop world and a couple times in the soldier world, where if you have none of that training or have never thought it through, right? You've not taken that responsible step of doing that. We tend to freeze up, right? We tend to just go to that mental space that does nothing to help us. And where if we spent the time, effort, and resources to build the emotional maturity, the mental acceptance that violence does exist and evil does exist, and it might come against us someday. And if we've prepared for it, we tend not to freeze up, and we tend less to become the victim of crime because
Or even just considered it.
considered it, right?
Yeah, some
I mean,
people just have never considered it.
well, I mean, think about this. Just today, right? Super Bowl party, the Chiefs. I mean, come on now. 49ers should have taken that. But anyways, the Chiefs, right? They have a Super Bowl thing going on, and somebody decides to go shoot that thing up. Just the other day, in a church down in Texas, right? Somebody decided to go in there and shoot that church up. Evil does exist. I would tell you, it's thinking about coming for you, killing you, raping you, stealing you, doing bad things to you and those you love. And it thinks about it on a continuous and all the time basis. It's what they do professionally. It's evil. And that's all they think about. Therefore, we have to give some mental energy, some physical energy towards preparing for that moment if it does come. Because if we don't, when that day comes, we tend to freeze up. And now we become the ultimate victim of what somebody else wanted to do who has evil intent, instead of what we can do in that moment, where oftentimes evil does not like resistance of any type. And if we've built some type of mental resistance, emotional resistance, and the ability to actually resist physically against evil, we oftentimes can overcome evil because evil does not expect that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They just simply to come in and dominate and be done with it, right? They're ambush predators. So to me, that's part of the process of figuring out how big is your love. So now let's go into that. So how big is your love?
I'm not staying here for this.
No,
I'm staying here. I'm listening. Oh, you want me to stay on the screen?
Stick around.
Okay.
So how big is your love, right? And really, to whom does it apply? There's the argument. Let's just take the active shooter incident. Okay. We just had one today, some type of active shooter incident that seemed to have happened in Kansas City. We had one church just the other day. Let's just say that alone, right? Not just evil while you pump gas and they try to rob you, but let's just say that. If that does happen, I've heard a lot of people talk about what they're going to do. In fact, recently I had somebody in one of my classes that said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab my family. My family's going to get behind me. They're going to hold on to me, and I'm going to get my family out of that situation. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to protect my family, get them out. Great. Decision's been made. It's been thought through, and that's what that person would do. No problem. I look at it this way. I've signed up as a gun carrier and a gun owner and somebody who takes training. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably too. We have all been dumb enough to sign up for the defense of life. Just how it is. And we may need to defend our families and get our families out there because nobody's more important than your family, right? At the same time, I realized I've been called. This is me personally. I've been called to become the defender of life. My wife and I had some deep conversations about this quite often. In fact, after our last class, when somebody talked about that, we talked about it again. My wife, if you know who she is and what she does, is very highly trained in the art of the gun and tactics and everything else. We've decided for us that if we're together with our kids and something bad happens, her job is to, because she'll have her gun, is to gather those boys up and get them to safety, while also, if she can, shepherding others towards safety while she maintains, vigilance, what's going on around her, and she's ready to use her gun in point time if she needs to, right? Because I get the feeling that more than one shooter or more than one active killer is coming to America. We're going to start seeing, I believe, more and more of those. But we've decided that if it's the four of us together, our two boys and her and I, she's taking the boys because she knows what to do with them instantly. And my job for me, because I felt like I've been called to be a defender of life, is now it's time for me to go on the hunt. It's time for me to go defend life, right? Not that I want to, not that it's exciting or anything like that, right? You don't want to go to the sound of the guns. I've had to do that before. It's no fun, right? But what about you? What's the best thing for you? Are you the one that's called to that? Have you decided where your calling is? Or is your calling to simply move yourself out of the area of danger? Or is your calling to shepherd other people out of the danger? Is your calling to hold a position and defend others? Or is your calling to go to what's the most dangerous thing? And in our case, we've decided that my boys need their mother more than their father. So if I need to go to the sound of the guns to help defend others who cannot defend themselves, they're not prepared for it, they don't carry guns, they've not thought this through nearly as well, or something like that. And think about that. That's the vast majority of our population. Then somebody's got to do it. Here am I, Lord, send me. That's where I've kind of decided that's how big my love is, right? And I don't mean that in a self-righteous mode. It's just simply God's given me the talent, the skills, the training, the everything to go do, and the mindset to go do that. If you are a highly trained person, right, maybe it is time for you to go to that. I think we have that calling to do so. So, anyways, that's kind of one of our bad things are happening plans. Let's change a little bit. Let's say it's just me. I don't have my wife. I don't have my kids. I don't have anybody to protect. It's just me there. I'm going, right? You got to be thoughtful of other responding officers that might be there, or you got to be thoughtful of their concealed carry holders. There's a lot of tactics that goes into this, but I know for me personally, I've been called. I have a duty from God that's been given to me to go do that. And I'm asking you, the audience, what about you? Are you called to that? I'm not saying you should be. I'm just saying, is this something you've truly thought through? We've decided that if it's my wife and our boys, one or both the boys, we've debated this back and forth, is do you gather the boys and shepherd them out, right? In the heat of Arizona where we live, if it's not hot out, do you throw them in the car real quick, not lock the doors, but shut them? And then does she go back in? It's a decision that I think will be situational. Or do you gather your kids, shepherd out those you can, and go away? That's a real thought process. Or is it you hand it off to somebody that you can just tell right then and there, those are good people, they'll take care of these kids. Here's my name, here's my number, watch my kids, and you go straight to the threat. That's been a constant, that's been an often conversation for us over the years as we've done this. Right. So those are options that we've talked about. And I can tell you, as we talked about it again the other day, is we both walked away with her going, if it's her and just the kids, what she will do in there is going to be situational, depending on how bad it is or what she believes can be done. And so have you thought through your plans too in a situation like that? Do you take yourself out of there? Do you take just your family out of there? Do you shelter others out of there or shepherd others out of there? Do you hold ground? Or do you assault the bad person, the evil that is there, even with the knowledge you may lose your life in going to do so? Really, I think it comes down to is how big is your love? And really that is to whom does your love apply? And I just know for me personally, God's called me to be a defender. I mean, shucks, it's even in the name. And therefore, there's a calling I have to answer, whether I like it or not. And that's part of the thought process. There's a lot more to it here, but really this is just a thing to put out there to others is how big is your love? Have you prepared for that on an emotional level? Have you prepared for that on a physical or skills level? As you guys all know, I mean, watching right now, we have some decent numbers of people watching right now. We all know the vast majority of gun owners are extraordinarily untrained. I mean, it's terrifying when I'm around the vast majority of gun owners. Can we now maybe go better our training, but also in the furtherance of our duty of love, can we also maybe encourage or motivate those we know who own guns to go out and get a little bit more training? Or could we even, through the force of our personality, through the kindness of our words or the consideration of our thoughts, can we find ways to inspire, motivate, or even we got to just bully gently people who are gun owners to go into better training, right? Or to go to more stuff. We desperately need to, as a society, get our gun owners to become better trained, more thoughtful, more responsible. And I think that's part of the defense of ourselves, of our community, and of our society as a whole, if we can now further that. So there's a lot more to be said, but to me, it just comes down to this. How big is your love? I've made some strong decisions for myself. And my hope is to purposely influence more people to gain better mental skills, better emotional skills, and better physical skills. Yeah, we use the gun to do that as a tool, But if we can do that, I think we can build better defenders. Let me show you something real quick. Let me grab something off my wall.
By the way, just so you know, guys, none of this was coordinated or planned. I have no idea what's happening, just like you don't know either.
So this is a picture, right? Obviously, Defenders USA says this will defend. And this is a picture that a very, very talented painter who became a dear friend, he painted this after going through one of my courses. And we talked about what do we want for the vision of Defenders. Now, if you notice, the vast majority of gun companies, it seems it's all black and dark and skulls and crossbones or cool hoorah stuff and all that stuff. And to me, I just didn't want that. So I was kind of explaining what my vision was, right? I want to build good defenders in all aspects, military, law enforcement, civilian. And we debated back and forth, and we finally settled on this Renaissance painting from a French painter from the early 1900s, I think. And it was really a mom and two kids. And you may not be able to see it well here. And the way we made this subtly defensive is he did his version of that painting. He put just a slight musket on her back here. So it's obviously a mom carrying along her two kids, right? Hands, holding their hands, shepherding them up the hill, which you can't see in here. And then just a slight musket up there. And it's really a subtle portion of her life, right? Obviously the kids are more important. Obviously what they're doing is more important. In that picture, when you see it, and if you see it here, there's a deep determination in this lady's eyes. You can even see it in the painting here.
It's a mama bear.
Yeah, but subtly, she prepared herself for the defense of life if she need to. And that's really what I think is part of all those aspects of learning being a good human, right? Knowing your God, studying your family, knowing your finances, excelling constantly at your occupation, and being prepared for the defense of yourself and those you love. And those are all tasks that take effort, thought, consideration, resources, and training to excel and grow in. And I just thought that was so endemic. The painting that he did and we'd put together for so long, so much so, right? It's now even on like the back of our new t-shirts that are on there, right? It's just, and I'm not saying that as a plug. It's just,
no, they're really cool though.
Yeah, but that's the mindset that I guess I'd like to build in people or be a part of as they build in themselves, is become defensive in nature of all these things. Again, their God, their family, their finances, their occupation, and really in the skills that they do. And if we can do that, we can build a more rounded defender, a more thoughtful defender, and really, I'd tell you, a better human. A better husband, a better wife, a better this, a better employer, employee, a better everything, because they've given such deep thought to all this, such consideration to this. And I think it's brilliant, right? Brian Hill, you know who that is. Brian and Shelley Hill own the Complete Combatant. And the name has kind of a pun involved, and it's actually kind of cool. But that's kind of the mindset behind this, is to build that complete combatant, a la what Brian and Shelley are doing. And you know, active self-protection talks about that active self-protection, right? It's kind of all these things too. That's what I want to build in here is that type. And to me, it comes down to this. The biggest message, besides the gun training, is how big's your love? Are you going to spend the time preparing yourself generally for the adequate defense of your family and others? Are you going to build yourself for the adequate use of your finances, the adequate use of your family and the growth of your family, the adequate knowledge of your own God, and that just takes work. And to me, I'm more interested in growing the more complete human than I am just a shooter, because being a shooter is a tiny microcosm of the whole thing, right? I mean, we use guns rarely in real life. All the other stuff is more important, but we defend it with the gun. And if we give it that mindset, I think that we build better people. And that's what I guess I challenge you. How big's your love? How far are you willing to go? And if you ever have to use this, how much of yourself are you willing to give if you need to in the defense of others?
Well said. There's no mic drop. Thank you, Adam.
Well,
if anybody has any questions, You guys can put those in the comments. But I was talking to somebody the other day who watches the show frequently, and you'll think this is kind of funny. And he said, "You know why you rarely have any questions during the show, don't you?" And I said, "No, I've wondered that, why sometimes there aren't very many." And he said, "It's because you've already answered all of them. There's nothing else to ask." And I thought, well, that's interesting. Guess that's one way to look at it. I've never felt that way, but I do hope that we're thorough and that this resonates and that people understand that the gun is such a small portion of our mission and what we're trying to do in building people. I think that you said that well.
You know, I guess last thing to add to this, if that day comes for you, right, where you've got to fight for your life or somebody else's, I've been there. I can tell you that the smells are horrific. And I'm talking not just of injuries to humans, but also the smell of burnt flesh or the smell of gunpowder in the air. It's not as cool as it smells on the range, right? I mean, if we made a perfume that was burnt gunpowder that you girls would wear, oh my goodness, right? Boy, it would sell like hotcakes, right? It's different when it's a fight, right? The emotion that goes into the extreme horror and terror that happens when you're there. I think these are things that need to be thought of, considered, read about, talked to others who've been there, and then started getting an understanding of that in your soul, not just in your head, but in your soul. So if that day ever comes for you, those moments don't catch you by surprise, or at least you recognize them because you've thought them through, talked about them, studied them, and considered them. So it doesn't delay you in your moment of need that you need to be acting or doing, because it's been precognitive ahead of time. It's been pre-thought through ahead of time. And though I never want anybody to have to go through some of these things, if it can be pre-considered, and as much as possible that having endured it, have been considered enough to where there's an understanding to it, we can spend more time acting and reacting than we can thinking, because pre-thought through understandings and decisions have been made. So therefore we can do more in shorter time frames than the vast majority, right? Watch YouTube stuff of people getting attacked. And so often people just stand there fat, dumb, and happy, frozen, because they never thought this through deeply. It shocked their senses, which is what the evil people want to do. And they become the ultimate victim of crime, where if we can build that mentality, heart set, and everything else ahead of time, action and reactions become far faster, and the defense of ourselves for others becomes a much easier task.
Yeah, build the heart set, the mindset, and then follow that up with action and skill building.
Yeah.
People usually start with the skill building, which you got to start somewhere, I guess. But
yeah, start with skill building. Spend a lot of time in it, right? It's a low probability, high risk thing. So you got to spend time with it, right? And it's perishable, so you got to spend time with it. But all the other stuff are and I would tell you, more important, that you spend just as much mental and emotional energy on as you would the skill building itself.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Adam, for taking the time to do this for me tonight. I appreciate you for doing that.
Glad to.
I definitely could not have said that the way you did.
Thanks for letting me on your show. It's
letting you on.
I love watching your growth.
Thank you. Okay, guys, so we're going to move on to the cool trailer that I want to show you, because I got to prep you guys for next week's guest. But first, a couple of announcements. And tell me in the comments what you thought about that. Do you have any questions for Adam? Does it make sense? Is it all kind of soaking in? Are you processing? I'm sorry, the light is blinking. Just pretend like that's not happening. But first, huge thank you to all of you who are supporting us on Defenders Live at locals.com by becoming a paid member. I just dropped episode 8 of Defenders Uncensored on the Locals channel. I posted that yesterday, so check that out. It should be in your email inbox, actually. During that discussion, I invited Adam Winch and Ryan Luca of Impact Montana, Siobhan Thompson of Throttle and Thrive, Mike Davis of Made Man Coaching, and Tim Grover of RevTac and Contact Front. I got all those guys together, all in the same room. which was really hard to do, by the way. And we got to the heart of the matter of what our veterans and first responders are facing today and real solutions to help them. You don't have to be in the veteran and law enforcement community to get a lot of gold nuggets out of this episode. It's definitely worth your time. And these people are absolutely amazing. I was so blessed to have all of them in the same room. They're definitely doing worthwhile work. So be sure to check that on locals.com. And then be looking for soon the early release of the Brian Hill story, released in its entirety of 2.5 hours on the Locals channel. It's going to be released there early. It is the first and last time that Brian says he will be sharing his story publicly. It's unbelievable, inspiring, raw, heart-wrenching at times, and unbelievably impactful to watch. It was hard for me to get through at times as the interviewer. But no matter what walk of life you come from, there's always so much to learn from Brian, and this story especially. So I encourage you to check that out. So if you guys are interested in those things, you can go to locals.com, go to the Discover tab, and search for Defenders Live there. And then the last thing I want to tell you before we leave tonight, I don't know how this happened, but I'm super stoked about it. Like, kind of fangirly almost. I want to be careful about that. But I got Christian Griffith on the show next week. He is one of the participants of a show called The Selection that my husband and I happened to run across one night, and was so good that we binge watched the entire thing in preparation for the show next week, and because it's an amazing show and so well done. I don't get paid to say this, but you should go watch it. It's on it's from the History Channel, but it's on Prime, Netflix, and I believe full episodes are on YouTube as well. It's called The Selection. And Christian Griffith is going to be coming on next week to answer all of my questions regarding things that happened on the show. And the dude is so inspirational. He's an extreme athlete and has unbelievable heart and perseverance that he shows in the show. He's exemplified true leadership in the show, and facing your darkest fears alongside other men and women who were suffering extremely. Let me just show you the trailer, and then you can understand what I'm talking about. And this is just a little taste of what the show is about. And then I'll, when we'll have him on next week, then I'll get more into specifically Christian himself. But let me show you this first.
This will, without a doubt, be the hardest military-style endurance event that's been put on in the United States, I guarantee you.
You guys are going to be trained and led by the nation's finest combat veterans.
Selection is really about you. It's not a competition against anyone else.
You have to have the will to survive in order to be successful.
It is amazing how much abuse the human body can take.
Don't let go!
The weakest person in the world is the person who thinks they can't be broken.
Why are you here? Because I want to be here, sir.
It's got to be more than that.
I want to be
Why
here.
do you want to be here?
Because I want to be pushed. I want to be motivated. So this is life. You guys know it. You've been pushed your whole life. This is life. You fight. You get hurt. Like, this isn't fun always, but you go through it. It's a process. This is the only way that you can find out what type of person you really are when you push to the limit.
Okay, so that was just barely enough to get you excited about it, guys. Me just watching that trailer, I think I could watch the whole entire season all over again. It's such a good show. It's so well done. And oh, the guys that are in there and the gals too are just so inspiring. It's just such a true test of character. You have to watch it. And you've got to be prepared for next week. When I bring Christian Griffith on, then you'll know which guy he is. And maybe you have questions for him as well. He also has an organization that he's going to be talking about that is just amazing. I mean, it's just incredible what this guy has done, not just in this show, but in his everyday life as well. So I'm super stoked, if you can't tell, to have him on next week. And I'm going to be so prepared for it, I hope. And so looking forward to introducing you to Christian Griffith next week. So be sure to tune in for that. Next week, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Wednesday. Can't wait to see all you beautiful people again next week. Until then, take care.